Hi guys, welcome back. This is for my Algebra 1 class, Lesson 6. We're going to be talking about subtracting integers and adding parentheses mentally. I'm working out of the Saxon book, 3rd edition. If you're following along at home, that is page 30-ish, 29, 30, something like that. All right, we're going to talk about subtracting integers. First and foremost, if you do not remember how to add integers, you need to go back and redo that lesson. I believe it was lesson 5. Quick reminder, 3 plus negative 5, we look at those, which team is larger? Looks like the negative team is larger. By how many? 2, okay? Negative 3 plus negative 2, these guys are on the same team, so we're not finding the difference between the two teams. We're just saying how big the team is now. And it looks like our negative team is now 3 plus 2, which would give us 5, okay? The reason why this is so important is because we are going to be doing subtraction. And guys, subtraction, looks like an O, equals addition. So our method for subtracting is actually just using addition. So if you don't know your addition, you're gonna really be scrambling with this, okay? I have a saying that I like to tell my 6th grader, or my 7th graders. My 6th graders subtract, 7th graders add the opposite. And we're gonna write that right up here. Add the opposite. And what do I mean by opposite? Well, if I say positive 3, the opposite of positive 3 would be negative 3. Opposite of negative 7 would be positive 7. So when I'm saying opposite, I mean the signs, okay? The reason why this is important, for example, we have 10 minus 6. Everyone knows that's 4, right? But really, this is not a subtraction problem. What this is we're going to add, so we change our subtraction sign to an add, the opposite. And what's the opposite of positive 6? Negative 6. Okay, now looking at that problem, 10 plus negative 6, we can ask ourselves, which team is larger? Looks like the positive team is, so our answer is going to be positive. By how many? 4. By 4, okay? And so that's how we get that answer. So no more subtraction, my friends. You're not subtracting anymore. You are going to be adding the opposite, Okay, so where this comes in play is when we have a bunch of different numbers. It's helpful to be able to kind of figure those out, right? So the first thing that we're going to do is, if you check page 31, 6b, or 6.3, we have an example there. Negative 5 plus 4 plus negative 3 plus positive 2. And they're using a plus sign like this in parentheses for positive. Those parentheses just mean positive or negative. It's not a big deal. That's why I've canceled mine out. I haven't used mine. So what we're going to do is we're going to gather up our teams. We've got this team and this team. That's our negative team, right? And how big is our negative team now? Looks like 8 players strong. How big is our positive team? Well, it looks like that's 6, right? Now we ask ourselves, which team is larger, negatives or positive? Looks like negative. By how many? 2. So that's going to be our answer, okay? So some of these are going to be with subtraction. So if you could look down to 6.5, we have a good example there. So this is 6.5. We have negative 4 minus 3 plus 2 minus 4 minus 3 minus 2. We do not subtract, we add the opposite. So the very first thing that you're going to want to do when you see these subtraction signs is we are going to add, and then the opposite of positive 3 is negative 3. Add, the opposite of positive 4 is negative 4. Add, the opposite of positive 3, negative 3. And add the opposite, okay? So we've gone ahead and added the opposite here. Taking a look at that problem, we have a bunch of negatives. We got this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Let's add up all of those negatives. We have 7 plus 3 is 10 plus 4 is 14, 15, 16. We have 16 players on our negative team. On our positive team, we just have those 2. Which team is larger? Looks like it's going to be our negatives. And by how many? 14. By 14, okay? So adding the opposite is going to be really important. When we get to some of these, and you'll see in this book or other books, it's written things like this: negative 10 minus negative 7. This is not the The parentheses are not for multiplication like you might, I'm sure in the past you've seen things like this, right? And that means to multiply. These parentheses are not for multiplication. They're just indicating that it's a negative. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm lazy. I don't like writing parentheses unless they're absolutely necessary. However, if you go my route and not write parentheses, you have to be very clear what is a subtraction sign and what is a negative sign. In this case, -10 minus -7. Do you see how I write my negatives a little bit higher up? Okay, that's the right idea. Again though, we are still going to add the opposite. We don't do anything with this front one, but we see this subtraction sign right here. We change it to addition, so we're adding. The opposite of -7 is +7. -7 is +7. Watch that one more time, and I'm gonna use a different color here. Because, take a look, we're gonna add the opposite, okay? Even when we were doing this, so -3 minus 2, let's do that. We're going to add the opposite. In all of these cases, do you see that I'm only drawing 2 lines? I'm drawing exactly 2 lines and only 2 lines. If you're drawing more than 2 lines, you've messed up somewhere, so you gotta be careful there, okay? So, coming back up to our problem here, -10 plus a +7. Now that we've corrected it to an addition problem, which team is larger? Looks like our negative team. By how many? 3, okay? So let's fix some of these other ones. All right, we have -2 plus 11 minus 4 plus 3 minus 2. All right, we take a look at those subtraction problems and we find those and we add the opposite. So we're going to add, and then, in fact, I will use that different colored marker, so hopefully you guys can see that. We're going to add, and the opposite of +4 is -4. We're going to add, and the opposite of +2 is -2. All right, let's gather up all our teams. We have -2, -4, -2. That team is 2 and 2 is 4 plus 4 more, -8. That team has 8 players. On our positive team, we have 11 and we have 3 for a total of 14. All right, looking at this, which team is larger? It looks like our positive team is larger. So we know the answer is gonna be positive, and it is larger by 6. There are 6 more players on that team, okay? Good. All right, so now what a good spot would be is to, on page 32, there's 4 practice problems, A through D, okay? Page, go ahead and get that out of the way. Page 32, A through D. Go ahead and pause the video and give those ones a shot and see if you can figure it out. When you're done, come on back. So for A, we have -5 minus 2 plus 7 minus 6. All right, we want to add the opposite wherever our subtraction is. So add the opposite, add the opposite. Now we're going to gather up all our negatives, and it looks like that's 11, 12, 13, or 13 on our negative team. And on our positive team, we have 7. Which team is larger? Looks like it's our negative by 6. Negative by 6. All right, let's try for B. I'll use a different color here. All right, for B, we have -4 minus absolute value of 2 minus 6 plus, now it's in parentheses, -5, but again, I don't like to use parentheses. So, all right, first things first, we want to treat this guy like parentheses. That is the absolute value of -2, which is 2. So I'm going to rewrite this whole thing, and I'm going to bring, so this guy got carried down to here. This is 2 minus 6 plus -5. Okay, now we're in a position. Once we've got those parentheses and absolute values out of the way, we can add the opposite. So here we're going to, at our first subtraction sign, add, and again, I think it's helpful to use that other color. So let's try that. So we're gonna add the opposite, and there we go. All right, let's gather up all of our negatives, and holy cannoli, all these guys are negative, so that's gonna make life easy. 4 and 6 is 10, plus 5 is 15, 16, 17. Our team, our negative team is now 17 players big. 17 players big. Good, that was for B. Let's try C. Okay, we have negative absolute value, -8, minus 3, plus 5 minus 11. Plus 5 minus 11. Okay, first things first, we got to get rid of our absolute value, so we're going to bring everything else down around that. Negative, and the absolute value of -8 is +8, minus 3 plus 5 minus 11. Now we're going to add the opposite. Add the opposite. Here's our first subtraction. We're going to add the opposite. Add the opposite. Now we're going to gather up all our negatives. There's 8 here, 3 here, 11 here, right? So that's 11, and 11 is 22 players on the negative team. On our positive team, we have 5. We have 5. So which team is larger? Looks like it's going to be negative, okay? And it is larger by, what's 22 minus 5? It's going to be 17. Negative 17. Excellent. All right, that was C. Let's take a look at D. We have -8 plus absolute value of -6 minus absolute value of 5 minus 7. All right, we got to get rid of those absolute value signs before we can do anything else. So we're going to bring everything else down. -8 plus the absolute value of -6 is going to be 6 minus the absolute value of 5 is going to be 5 minus 7. Good. We are now in a position to add the opposite. So we go through, we find our subtraction signs, we add the opposite. Add the opposite. All right, now we're in a position to gather up our teams. 8. So 8 made a 16 minus 1 is 15, I can't think, plus 5. So we've got 20 players on that negative team. On our positive team, we have 6. 6. Which team is larger? Looks like that negative team has 20 players, and it is larger by how many? 14. By 14. Excellent. All right, thank you for joining me on those ones. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks so much.